Thank you, Madam
and whether
Speaker.
the capacity
I rise
of
in
the
support
ports
of a very
is being
important piece
utilized
of
or
legislation
not, that needs to be
which is
given an
long
account.
overdue.
How many ports
That is
in
the
our
Admiralty,
country?
Jurisdiction and Settlement of the Maritime Claims Bill 2016. I thank the Honorable Prime Minister
Mr.
as well as the
Chaudhary,
Honorable
nothing
Minister
will
for
go on
Shipping,
record.
Mr. Nitin Gadkari, for having introduced this important piece of legislation. At the outset, Madam Speaker, I would like to give some facts and figures so as to understand the importance of this legislation. Madam Speaker, we have a coastline. Our country has a coastline of around 7,516 kilometers. There are 13 coastal states, union territories, as well as the island territories, which are in India. There are almost 70 coastal districts. We have 13 major ports. We have 205 minor ports, as has been stated by the Honorable Minister. I placed these figures because this would help us to understand the importance of this legislation. Madam Speaker, as has been pointed out by the Honorable Minister, that till date, the maritime law in India is being governed by the old British laws. I would like to cite those four laws. One is Admiralty Court Act of 1861. Secondly, Colonial Courts of Admiralty Act of 1890. Colonial Courts of Admiralty India Act 1891, which was subsequently introduced in 1 year. And fourthly, the provisions of the Letters Patent of 1865, which are insofar as they apply to the Admiralty jurisdiction of the Bombay, Calcutta and Madras High Courts. Because only 3 High Courts, that is Bombay, Madras and Calcutta, they were conferred with the jurisdiction of the Admiralty. Madam Speaker, I would like to make a mention that many a times I have come across such matters and the litigations wherein the issues regarding the jurisdiction, the issues regarding the arrest of a vessel, the issues regarding the collision of a vessel, the issues regarding the territorial jurisdiction, those issues have been debated, discussed, and only on the point of jurisdiction, the years have taken up for these litigants to address their grievances. So therefore, the present piece of legislation, which is repealing all the 4 old acts which are obsolete, which are redundant, and so therefore this piece of legislation is very much important considering the maritime law and considering the shipping industry in our country. Madam Speaker, I would like to draw the attention to Clause E of Section 2 of the Act, which now confers the Admiralty jurisdiction on the 8 High Courts, which are of the coastal states. Now those High Courts are, because earlier there were only 3 High Courts, there were 3 High Courts. Now Clause E says that High Court of Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, Karnataka, Gujarat, Orissa, Kerala, and Hyderabad for the state of Telangana and state of Andhra Pradesh, as may be notified by the central government for the purposes of Act, are the High Courts within this law. Secondly, the jurisdiction of these High Courts is also specified in Section 3 of the Act, which says that these Acts shall vest in the respective High Courts, the jurisdiction shall vest in the respective High Courts and be exercisable over the waters up to and including the territorial waters of the respective jurisdiction in accordance with the provisions contained in this Act. Why in fact I pointed those provisions is because, as I mentioned it earlier, many a times when the issue arose, it so happened whether the jurisdiction by this High Court, whether the jurisdiction with that High Court, and the provisions, because of the provisions of the Letters Patent as well as the State Reorganizations Act of the every court, that's the reason why the issues in fact could not be discussed, issues could not be debated, and issues could not be redressed for years together. Madam Speaker, I would like to say, for the first time the importance of the legislation came to light in the year 1986 when the Praveen Singh Committee was constituted. But subsequently, in the year 1992, when the Honorable Supreme Court, in the landmark judgment of M.V. Elizabeth, said, and the Supreme Court was shocked and surprised, and Supreme Court did mention in that judgment that the old archaic laws which are governing this particular Admiralty jurisdiction should be repealed. This was in the year 1992. after 45 years of gaining independence. And in spite of that, we could not have our own legislation in place. And so therefore, in fact, I would not like to reproduce what has been stated by the Supreme Court in its paragraph. But the Supreme Court is very categorical, and the Supreme Court said that the Law Commission in its 5th report on the British statutes applicable to India went to detail on scope of the article so and so, so and so. But Supreme Court state own laws on the subject matter of those statutes where it is necessary to do so and take legislative action, making it clear that these statutes are no longer applicable to India. This was in 1992, Madam Speaker. Subsequently, in 1994, the Law Commission came out with its own report. And this report, though it has been stated that it's a suo motu report, but it came in 1994. In the Law Commission report, the Law Commission has specifically held that this is an old enactment. This is an old law. And so therefore, this law needs to be replaced and new law has to be, in fact, introduced. This was in the year 1994. Subsequently, the new law was drafted. It was placed. Subsequently, it was discussed. And it was referred to the standing committee as has been pointed out by my learned friends. And so therefore, thereafter, in the year 2005, when it was the standing committee submitted its recommendations on 21st of March 2006, thereafter, in fact, this law was introduced. Now, but still it took almost 11 years for this law to see the light of the day. The salient features of this law is the application of the Code of Civil Procedure, where the law cannot be, by the law is silent, and where the action is needed. In that case, the Code of Civil Procedure can be brought in. Secondly, the action in rem and action in personam. Thirdly, the settlement of claims. I would not like to go much into detail, but the settlement of claims is Section 4 of the Act specifically provides for which are the claims that can be settled under this Act. These are some of the salient features of this legislation. Madam Speaker, on one hand, when we talk about making India a superpower, I always feel that it is our bounden duty, irrespective of the party to which we belong, to take steps to achieve this goal. The Honorable Prime Minister, in 2016, in the Maritime India Summit held in Bombay, had said that this government wants to make coastline an engine of growth. He also said that the government would like to invest around 1 lakh crore for the development of the ports in India. Our government has taken various initiatives in this direction by launching ambitious Sagarmala program. In the last 2.5 years, Honorable Minister Shri Nitin Gadkari ji has taken steps for the development of ports. I come from the state of Goa. There is only one major port. But in the last 2.5 years, due to the efforts of Mr. Gadkari ji, the development activities have taken up, various infrastructural activities have been taken up, so far as my port in Marmagua Port Trust is concerned. Besides that, the nationalization of the 106 rivers is also a part of this program. While enacting this legislation also, around 5 laws have been repealed while consolidating and while bringing in the National Waterways Bill. Madam Speaker, I would like to make a mention. On one hand, when we talk about India being a global power, on one hand, when we talk about the development of India, at the same time, we need to keep it in our mind that in the last almost 2.5 years, this government has repealed around 1,200 old obsolete laws. I'm making it a mention because in the last 64 years, that is till 2016, only 1,031 laws which were old and which were obsolete were repealed by the then government. It is this government which has taken firm steps in this direction. Madam Speaker, I would like that the market size of the maritime trade is on rise. In fact, the latest answer which has been furnished to me yesterday, I had raised a question on this issue. In the same question, what has been answered by the honorable government is that in 2016 it expects the maritime trade to reach around 1,715 million metric tons. Therefore, the government expects that there is a growth of around 18% in the maritime trade. Madam Speaker, we talk and we say that 65% of the population is young and it is youth. Government has been taking steps for raising the business, industry and opportunities for our younger generation. Through the various programs like Make in India, Startup, Stand Up, Skill Development, Sagarmala, Port, Road, Air, Rail, Connectivity. We have also jumped 12 ranks in the World Bank ranking in the ease of doing business. This legislation, in my opinion, is another step towards making India as a business destination. And I'm sure that the shipping and the maritime industry will welcome this legislation. It is the need and the demand of the time that we rise to the occasion and bring in reforms in our old archaic regulations, or otherwise we repeal them. We come out with the new legislations and the regulations with the changing times so as to make our all shared vision of making India a global superpower. With these few words, I support this legislation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.